ora te whānau, we're live, ALTBAYS Show brought to you by ALTBAYS.nz. If you're watching us right now, it's because you are on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to our channel. That helps the crew. It makes our platform grow, which is great. So we keep bringing all these beautiful, inspiring people to chat here with us. If you are listening to us, you might be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and you can also subscribe to those platforms, which supports the team a lot. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. The Madhouse TikTok, of course, we're there. Make sure to check us out there too. And the media group that produces the ALTBAYS Show also publishes the Coromind magazine. Look at this beautiful thing. If you're watching us, you cannot see the cover, so you're going to have to go to coromind.nz to see this beautiful cover made by our friend Jason Tahatika. We're very, very proud of coming to issue number 6 strong with a great support from the Coromando community. So if you are a business and you want to advertise in the magazine, it's good for us and it's good for you because the magazine is beautiful and it stay at establishments for a long time. It won't be recycled after a week or two. It really sits at the establishments. And if you are a writer, if you want to send us an article, or if you are an illustrator and you would like to illustrate one of our pages, get in touch. hello@coromind.nz. Cool. Kia ora, Tanya. Hello.
Kia ora, Leo. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great because I'm here.
Oh, it's so nice to have you back. Always a pleasure. How is your Lotta Love food truck going?
It's not at the moment.
But it was.
But it was.
Week,
yeah, no, it's just stopped because the markets have stopped now. But I will put a plug in. I will be at the night market on July the 15th in town. So if you're coming down, I'm going to have some hot food.
Awesome.
Love to see you. And yeah, I'm just having a little rest now before the summer starts up again.
That's good. Good move. So
yeah.
for the people watching us, Tanya Arnold, she came to our show and also is the owner of Lotta Love plant-based foods. So Tanya, you take classes, right? If people want to learn.
If anyone wants a plant-based cooking class, just get in touch with me and we can tailor make, you know, day, date, time, cuisine, plant-based.
Cool. And you also makes beautiful cakes and desserts and meals.
And slices and all sorts of things, really. I can make to order, you know. It doesn't have to be down at the food truck or at the market or whatever you want. Get in touch. I have a website. I can make anything you like, even ice cream.
How good is that ice cream? How good is the
Well, I've got some caramel coming very soon. Caramel ice cream. Yum. Yes.
Tanya.
I'll bring you some very shortly. I'm working on it.
Sugar is vegan, eh? What a problem in my life. Damn. Thank you so much, Tanya. Always a pleasure to have you here.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. And we have the pleasure to talk to Renee Taylor. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. How is life in the Coromando at the moment?
Wet and windy.
It's crazy, eh?
I know. It's a little bit depressing, but yeah, no, it's good. I'm in Wharekaho at the moment, but about to move to Kuatunu, so exciting.
Nice.
Cool. So for the work that you do, is that... does the bad weather really stop things from happening, or is just like adaptability? You have to see how to operate and what to do?
It depends what you're asking about because I do
because you have different things, right? I'm going to read your bio in a minute, but
okay.
let's start with the freediving. I guess the weather is a big one for that, right?
It's massive, and I feel like I haven't been freediving in yonks because of this weather, but it's definitely weather dependent, unless you're going in a pool or something like that. But yeah, the weather can be a bit of a Debbie Downer.
Right. So let me do this right first so we can...
Yeah, introduce me already.
I'll introduce you, Renee. Leave it with me. So Renee Taylor, speech therapist and also the owner of Salt Aotearoa Freediving. Renee wrote something beautiful in Te Reo Maori, so I will do my best and read it. So, ko Takitimu te waka, ko Tauranga te moana, ko Mauao te maunga. Is that right? And she gave me keep going, man. Ko Ngāti Ranginui te wiwi, ko Ngāti Hangarau te hapū, ko Hangarau te marae, ko Renee Taylor tōku ingoa.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
That's my pepeha.
Yeah.
Your pepeha.
Yeah, so that's who I am. So it's a bit funny that you've just done that for me, but yeah. So that just explains where I come from, where I whakapapa on my Māori side. But yeah, I also whakapapa to Albania and to England, and a little lashing of Scottish in there too. So yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that. We
Thanks for saying it. You
giving it
did
a
such
go.
a good job.
Thank you.
Your pronunciation is beautiful.
Thank you very much. I'm working on it. I'm keen to learn, as I told you before. All right, Renee is a free diving instructor, the founder of Salt Aotearoa, and also a clinician and the director at Swallow and Speech Therapy Consultants Limited, a speech language therapy private practice specializing in aged care. That's cool. Renee's passion lies in inspiring a deeper connection with the moana, the ocean. Through her work as a free diving instructor, she encourages people to explore the realms of free diving, spearfishing, and gathering kaimoana, which is seafood. While Renee herself is relatively new to these activities, having discovered free diving and spearfishing at the age of 30, their impact on her life has been profound. Now she's eager to share her experiences, especially with other wahine Maori. Renee believes that these activities can not only reconnect individuals with their Maoritanga, which is Maori cultural identity, but also reshape their perspective on the human impact on the moana and our taiao. Salt Aotearoa, founded by Renee, provides exciting opportunities for people to embrace the water and learn the art of free diving. The company hosts a range of events and diving camps, creating an inclusive and supportive environment for participants. Through Salt Aotearoa, Renee aims to cultivate a deep appreciation for the ocean, empowering individuals to develop their skills and foster a profound connection with the wondrous world beneath the waves. Wow!
Oh my God! Holy! Who wrote that?
That was
Wow.
that easy an intro.
That was great. Can I take that? Did you write that?
Yeah, you
That's
can take
amazing.
that.
That's going to be my elevator pitch. You have to go up like 15 stories to get all that out.
It's
but-
on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Oh my
yeah. So it's the description.
You started talking, I was like, I didn't write
I
this.
didn't write that.
This sounds great.
Well, but that's something that helps me when the guest, because like you send me a cool, very compact bio.
I know, that's
But
why I was like, where did this come from?
But I also, but because I was stalking you, so I also found your website and some
Amazing.
other cool places that you've been
That's
to, like
great.
some media, and then I was like, okay, what can we do? With
So
that?
I can just
we'll
jump
keep
in
you
there and
on.
say it was you and not AI that wrote that.
AI helps. Chat GPT. So what you do, you get the main point. I don't like to
Oh,
ask.
what? You're being serious? AI?
Yeah. So so the thing is,
Wow.
it's all about the prompts now. So when you use Chat GPT, you have to ask the right questions for it. So what I do, I gather the information that I found, and then I go for like a draft, what I want.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if I just ask, can you ask about Renee? It will give me something similar to
Yeah.
what's already there. So I put the information that I want as a
Quite
prompt.
amazing, hey?
That's
Like,
amazing.
yeah.
And then it gives me an option, and then I read through and I'm like, oh, that paragraph is not good. And then I change it, or then I ask, oh, can you refresh that? So by putting bits together, you can build something cool. Yeah, it's just
Very
using
cool, though.
It's just using the
Yeah.
technology in your favor, you know? Like I wouldn't extract exactly what it gives
Yeah,
to
yeah,
me
yeah.
and put it out there, but I can tailor it.
Yeah. I'm just, things are ticking over my head now, how I could make my life easier
Yeah.
with this. Holy.
Especially with the school, because a lot of teachers, they are understanding that once you turn a card and you see it, you can unsee that. So the kids are already using it. It's something that is part of their lives. So it's much more, how are you going to embrace this? How are you
Yeah.
going to use this instead
Use
of
it in the right way, eh?
you
And,
can't
yeah.
fight against it. So as I said, like you gave me something, I found information for your websites, and I know our format for the show.
Yeah.
So I can ask AI. So my thinking process is like, what do I want from AI? Because if I just say, write me as a word script, it's not that cool. It's not that precise. So yeah.
That's
have,
cool.
have you tapped into any of
No,
those
but now I'm
platforms
like,
yet?
maybe it can write my speech therapy reports.
maybe it can. Maybe it can. You know, you still have to do something with it. You
Yeah,
still
yeah.
have to go and do some work, but it helps a lot.
Yeah. Oh, cool. No.
Speech therapy.
Yes.
When did that click in your life? When was the thing that you were like, I want to?
So speech therapy is my kind of contrary to popular belief. I think people just think all I do is freedive, which is very far from the truth. My actual job is speech and language therapy. And I studied years ago for that. Started out doing psychology and then did a master's in speech and language therapy and started out working, thinking I'd really like to work with children, and then quickly shifted that thinking to adults in the health industry. So I've worked in hospitals, I've worked at the University of Auckland teaching for a couple of years, and I've sat on a couple of health boards, and now I work for myself for my own private practice, specialising in aged care, because when I was working in the hospital I kind of just saw how much, am I allowed to swear?
Yes. Yes.
How much shit goes on in the aged care system, and how much they kind of just get forgotten, and the services that are there are just pretty poor at the moment. So for me, I specialise in swallowing disorders. So I'm a swallowing specialist.
Right.
Boom, boom, I'll do the sound for you. So I just help out adults and older adults to eat and drink and basically dine with dignity. Without choking and aspirating.
What happens to our bodies that we need the speech therapist? Like, is it just purely aging and then things start to they don't work as efficiently, or it's due to the way that we breathe, that we don't know how to breathe properly, or the foods that we eat, or like are there triggers?
A lot of it. There's lots of things that come into play. The things that I'm dealing primarily with are progressive neurological diseases. So a lot of things like Parkinson's disease, or we were talking about motor neuron disease, or dementia. And so that's when your muscles and things slowly sort of deteriorate. But you've got things like stroke and head and neck cancers. So those are all kind of conditions and diseases that can affect the anatomy and physiology of your throat and your swallowing system. But
you just said dementia. I would never have associated.
About 70% of people that have dementia have swallowing disorders in the later stages.
I would never have put those two together.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm just really distracted right now because you've got an Albanian eagle on your jacket.
Yeah, this is a very, very popular
I'm Albanian.
brand from Brazil.
What?
Called Cavaleira.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was created by, I don't know if you're into heavy metal, but there's a very famous band from Brazil called Sepultura.
Are they Albanian?
And I don't know, there might be some relation to their families, but the Cavaleira brothers, they started a brand years ago, the brand that takes their last name, Cavaleira, and it became very popular. And then they sold to a big guy in the fashion industry.
That's so funny.
And it's a big brand, but this is a very, 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 very common.
Let's have a look.
So that's the double-headed eagle. That's our Albanian flag emblem.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Funny, eh? Sorry, that's not completely off topic, but I was like, hey.
But
why have you got that on there?
I was really fascinated because you said you were part Albanian. Was it
Albanian.
On your mum or your dad's? Or
On my mum's Albanian. It's, oh my God, have you got 5 hours or 5 years? This story is...
We got time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No,
Lots of culture.
I'm Albanian on my mum's side and Māori and English on my dad's side. So basically, my parents are the OG Taika Waititi and Rita Ora. So if they have children, this is what they're going to look like. So my mum... she was born and raised in Albania, which was communist at the time, and my dad was born here, in Greymouth. And then when he was very young, my granddad, his father, moved him and all of his siblings over to Albania.
Wow.
To live a bit of a communist life. There's much more to this story that I'm letting on.
That's quite a huge move.
It's massive. Yeah, it's huge. So so they grew up. So Dad grew up in a bunch of... him and his siblings, a little Māori family, grew up in Albania.
So you were born in Albania?
No, my older sister Moana was. And then, then my parents met over there and had my sister. And then when she was about 5, Dad spent a long time planning a way out because it was communist, you can't leave. But I'm not going to get into that story because it's honestly massive and I think it should be a movie. Maybe Taika Waititi should make it. But then they managed to get out and my sister and I were born here in Taranaki.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How was your journey to find out about your whakapapa, to go and find out more about your Albanian roots? Was it something that was always present when you were young?
Yeah, I've always known I was Albanian very much. That was probably the prominent culture that we were brought up in, as in kind of an Albanian culture. And yeah, kind of typical Kiwi culture. But my Māori stuff, I never really... I don't even know what the word is. I kind of pushed that to the side a lot. We weren't growing up. We didn't grow up on our marae or connected to our whakapapa at all. When Dad came back, you know, he had grown up mainly in Albania, so lost that kind of connection. And then amongst a lot of other things, when you live in a country where, you know, and that your indigeneity is kind of suppressed a little bit, and you assimilate to the dominant culture, it was almost embarrassing growing up. I didn't want to be Māori. I remember, Moana saying she used to hate having a Māori name. And I know that this is a pretty common story for lots of families.
That's really interesting, and I don't want to take away from what you're here talking about tonight, but a friend of mine who was Maori, and she was on the show, same thing, her father, who was Māori, took her away down to the South Island because he didn't want her to know that she had, which was quite sad, and she said until she had, you know, years later when she went into the Navy, she didn't realise that she was Māori until people pointed it out, and that's like really sad.
It's sad. It's common. It's a common story. My story is very common. I mean, so I was almost embarrassed. Didn't want to really have much to do with it. It was, you got teased and stuff, but so. It wasn't until I was in my 30s when I learnt how to free. It's actually kind of all connected. When I learnt how to freedive, and I learnt how to freedive because I was so burnt out because of the work that I was doing and dealing with death and dying every day, and everything was getting pretty hectic. I learnt how to freedive, and then at the same time I was learning more about the cultural stuff within my profession, and it all kind of came together, and I just started reconnecting with my Māoritanga when I was more connected to the ocean and the environment around me. So I felt more confident to be Māori in the ocean.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, because even if you didn't, I don't know, for me, if you don't have many Māori don't have their language anymore, and so you don't feel Māori enough in lots of ways, and so and there's so much that's associated with it. It's too big of a topic to even really get into, but reclaiming that your language and your identity and all that kind of stuff is quite traumatizing in itself. But I think that the environment can help you do that, whether it's freediving or walking in the bush, or I don't know, climbing a tree, or having, I don't know, going hunting, or whatever it is. For me, it was freediving and the ocean, where I felt I could just be me, and I didn't need to explain to someone I'm this percent this or this percent that, or do you know what I mean? I don't know. I felt whole there, and that's what I think with Salt Aotearoa. It's, I mean, on the surface it's kind of a freediving thing, but actually for me it's so much more deep than that. It's somewhere where people can learn to connect with themselves.
I was going to say, do you think it's like a coming home
to
who you are, you know, your spirit?
Yeah, it's been huge for me in that way, and it would just be so cool to see other people be able to feel more confident in their reclamation and whatever their identity. It could be their Māoritanga, it could be whatever. Like at the end of the day, everyone actually whakapapa to the ocean. We all came from there. We were all fish at one point. And that's the cool thing about freediving, is we actually have a reflex called the mammalian dive reflex. And when you freedive, you tap into that, and that's something that we all have from when we used to be in the ocean. So all mammals have
I could
that.
imagine, like we were saying earlier, like for me being quite terrified and that, but I'd imagine if you got into the right headspace or mindset, it could be quite freeing and quite peaceful.
It is. It's huge. And it's the only place that my internal dialogue switches off. So my brain's constantly just going, all sorts of things that I'm having to think about, running businesses, life, all that, and that's where everything switches off for me, and you kind of get to just have this reset, and because the foundation of freediving is to be present, is to regulate your breathing and your lowering your heart rate and being relaxed. you're automatically in a situation where you're relaxed and enjoy it.
Were you already tapping into the breathing techniques because of the speech therapy?
Totally. I was already I was doing those breathing techniques way before I started freediving, and it was something that I was implementing with my patients, with the speech side of it, not the swallowing side of it, because the first step of good voicing and things is good breathing. And so a lot of my Parkinson's patients, we work on voice therapy because their voice can go quiet over time. And so I was implementing we were talking about mindfulness and breathing as a therapy tool just to start our sessions, and then learned how to freedive, and I was like, holy shit, this is all like the same. And
subconsciously you were putting yourself into that.
yeah. And now I'm combining bloody swallowing disorders and kaimoana, so that's another little area that I'm trying to tap into too. But it's amazing how everything kind of just intertwines.
And that's the cool thing about our show. Like, we can go wherever we want to go. You mentioned something with did you say Parkinson's?
Yeah, Parkinson's disease.
So my grandfather got Parkinson's disease, and now I can see it's close because when I video chat my mom and my grandfather's there, like I'm following what's happening, and like I wouldn't imagine that affects so many parts of the body. I think because like most people have that idea of I think Muhammad Ali was a big one that people would see his hands, and like there's always a personality or someone that you relate to. You're like, oh yeah, I remember. It affects the whole body.
Whole system, yeah.
The whole system.
Yeah. It is. It's a difficult one. And
there's no cure, is there?
No. And there's medications that you can take to minimise some of the symptoms, but again, it's a progressive neurological disorder, which is kind of the area that I specialise in. But so things progress over time, and one of the things with Parkinson's disease is the voice goes quiet. And so speech therapists can come in and support with that, but also swallowing disorders. So if you ever need information, you just email me because I will give you everything.
Cool. So is it so cool? Again, we can go back and forth. When it comes to confidence, let's say there is a child that is struggling. So that's also part of your realm, right? So you can help people with different issues. Like a speech therapist can help many different areas of
it's huge. You can work with kids. You can work with kids with speech and language difficulties. You can work with kids in health, feeding, and sort of like Starship and NICU. You can help with adults. There's so many kind of arms and legs to it, but people typically think we just help people with stutters. But I mean, I wouldn't know where to start with a stutter. So if you stutter, don't come to me.
Right? Are there preventive things? Like, are there things for the everyday people that would help with the swallowing or just the breathing? Are there cool things that we take it for granted that we don't even realize that they are not the greatest for?
I think if you're just an everyday punter, just enjoy eating and drinking while you can. And then when it starts to change, you know who to call.
Yeah. Right.
No, okay. I think if
you bring the straw.
Yeah. No, get rid of straws. I hate straws. I mean, there's a lot of medical conditions that can kind of lead to that, and they're all different, and it's all varied. It's not just one swallowing disorder. I mean, I'm not going to bore everyone with it, but if you have any symptoms like that, talk to your GP, and always feel free to call me.
What is the work that you're currently doing with the speech therapy? Because you do some work at the Lost Spring, right? Can you take me through that group?
So the Lost Spring stuff has got nothing to do with my speech therapy. Is that what? Yeah, the Lost Spring stuff is the freediving.
Yes,
because there's a lot to do.
For people are going to be, what the hell does she do?
That's cool how they you said that they go together in a way, because there's a lot of breathing focus on that, right? Yeah, so you're taking the groups to feel more confident underwater? Yes.
So so the Lost Springs workshop is a breathing for freediving and hauora, or wellness. So it's for people that want to learn or already know how to freedive, but want to know the basics of our breath and how that can support a better bottom time and everything like that.
You don't put your head under the water though.
But also at the surface, you've got a mask and a snorkel.
Oh, I didn't think you could at the hot springs.
You can. We also share the pool at that time with the super soakers, and so there's swimming laps and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, not the hot pool, just the normal one.
Yeah.
So we just do our breath work there. So that's supposed to support your freediving, but also support your wellness. So the whole purpose of that is to also encourage people to learn about how your breath can positively, I guess negatively as well if you do it incorrectly, but positively impact your whole hauora, which speaks to wellness in general. So you're like holistically, so it can influence your physical.
Need to come to this. I'm going to come to it.
Your physical, your spiritual, your mental, your
Sounds
everything.
good.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
it's just, and it's in a nice setting. And if you want to, you can have a cocktail after or coffee. But it's such a beautiful setting to be able to relax into it. So yeah, that's something that we're offering at the moment.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Like you are underwater, so mouth breathing. If you got the snorkel, right? So like so. Or if it's scuba diving or whatever, that's mouth breathing. But from what the research that I do and the books that I read, people usually will recommend you to do nose breathing.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Like, yes?
Yes. So if you're just doing regular breath work for not freediving, then definitely you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Of course, with freediving, you can't use your nose because you'll get water everywhere and drown. So you have to breathe through your mouth. But when we're practicing the breath work dry, like on land, and just learning how to do relaxation when you're lying flat on your back, then that's when we also teach the breathing through your nose and out through your mouth. And then when you get in the water, then we have to just get used to using the snorkel in and out through the mouth, but using the same technique so that you can get as calm and relaxed as possible.
Is there anything with the nostrils, the sides, that are actually very simple and people just don't know? What I heard is that like if you block one side, you're activating one part that is more likely to relax you. Is there anything that plays in your realm with like understanding what's going through with sides and all this stuff, or no?
I mean, probably. If I don't know the answer to that one, in terms of your nose anatomy.
I just
and
remember someone saying that, and Blair, one of our guests, he was taking me through some exercises of like just breathing, inhaling from one side.
Look, I'm sure there
exhaling.
are. I'm sure, yeah.
I think they
I'm
do
sure.
that in some yoga classes. You know,
Yoga
they
as
block
well,
off,
right? Yeah.
But I don't know the full.
God, you're making me feel like I
reason.
need a sniff in the microphone.
And there's a big focus on, as we read on your bio, wahine, on
Yes.
taking women to those spaces.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why? Is it because it was like a bit of a macho
Women
space?
rule and boys drool. No. No, it's not that at all. It's not that at all. God, I hate it when people think I'm like this crazy banshee that hates men. I love boys. Nah. It basically started, so Salt Aotearoa started because I became burnt out in my work that I was doing, and I found that the ocean and freediving was a good way for me to escape that. And when I first started doing that, it was, and I still think it is, quite male dominated, which isn't a bad thing. People don't get angry at me for saying that, but it's just a fact. It's male dominated. Lots of spaces are, and because of that, it was quite intimidating for me to. Get into, like walking into a spearfishing
Did
store.
you find some resistance?
No, honestly, no.
Yeah.
And actually, it was beautifully welcoming, but it was just scary being a single female walking into like a dive store with men everywhere. You're kind of like, I don't know, like I want this dudaki, or like give me something that will spear a fish, but I don't know any of the language or anything like that. So it was scary for me, but I just did it anyway because I really wanted to do it. And then when I started posting, little tidbits on my Instagram 4 years ago, I started getting DMs from chicks instead of guys, so that plan failed. And realised that so many girls were wanting to do similar things, like get into freediving and spearfishing, and didn't know how, didn't know where to start, or had a boyfriend but they wouldn't teach them, but just really wanted to give it a go. So that's where it started, and that's why it started to sort of create a safe space for women, and safe in the terms of safety in the water, but also safe for women, just because sometimes, I was getting stories, and the reality is I was getting stories of women that had negative experiences with men on boats and things like that. So it was like, how can I create spaces for wahine to get together and like learn how to do this, where we can openly talk about periods and stuff like that. You
Well,
know what I mean? Which we should normalise anyway. So that's kind of how it started, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and never thought I'd become an instructor myself. So we kind of facilitate freediving courses and camps and trips and things like that. But end of last year, I became a freediving instructor myself, which was a massive achievement for me. I didn't think that I would do that.
How long does that take, that whole process of
freediving instructing?
Yeah.
It depends. It depends who you do it with. I did mine with SSI, and it was an intensive 10-day course where we would just, work like that courses.
And do you do that in the ocean or in a pool?
It was a mixture. It was ocean, pool, lake, a lot of theory, and a lot of it is learning how to teach, not just being able to prove that you can safely freedive to certain depths and whatever. But that was really, really cool. And I never thought that I would personally want to do the freediving instructing. I was quite happy facilitating that and getting instructors to come in. But ever since I've done that, I've loved it. I've absolutely loved teaching, especially women and kids. Kids have been cool, and since being with my partner Julian now,
shout out
Julian Hansford, who
gotta support the team. Gotta support the team.
He's I don't know, for those who know, he's pretty salty himself. Him and I, like to teach sort of freediving and spearfishing stuff together, which has been really cool. So teaching families and kids and
that must be very empowering though, as a woman.
Oh, it's
especially being an instructor now, and then, rather than bring someone else in, it's like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah, and seeing how quickly people progress is incredible. And honestly, and this is not bagging guys out at all, because I've got no problems helping and teaching and being involved, and that's fine. But women, there's just something a bit more delicate or something, and seeing people that have never done it before and learn and listen and do it, they just look beautiful and elegant in the water, and it's such a cool thing to experience, being able to teach it and experience that person being so stoked with how quick you can get good. So freediving is something that if you just practice, like your breath hold and your freediving, you can get good very quickly. You can also lose it very quickly. But it's something that's like, it's so instantly gratifying that it can get people very hooked.
Is it a misconception that it's only for fishing?
For spearfishing?
Like that the freediving is with the intent of going and catching fish?
Yeah, no. You can do freediving, line diving. I find that really relaxing, where you just going up and down a line with all the safety stuff. And you're just focusing on relaxing and going down and experiencing wherever you are, if it's a lake or the ocean. That's really cool. That's beautiful. But then, yes, of course, and now it's very popular is the spearfishing and the kaimoana kind of gathering. I think it's one of the, oh God, here we go, we're live and I'm trying to throw stats out, I'm going to get burnt for this. I think it's one of the fastest growing sports in New Zealand, spearfishing. So the which is really cool and exciting, but the scary thing about that is people are just getting into it, strapping some weight on, having absolutely no training at all, and getting themselves into trouble. So because the safety aspect is, I mean, for me, huge, and that's something that we at Salt Aotearoa really sort of pushes, like do a course, get some training, learn with a mentor, because it can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, but it can be perfectly safe if you know your limits and know how to avoid.
And things can
like
happen or
out.
Change so quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to get into the kaimoana and the fishing, but
sorry.
before just so I break down some basic concepts, because I'm sure some people might be watching like they have no clue about the basics, because I don't.
Yeah.
So how deep would you go? Like what? Yeah, like those.
How long the brace of
fruit? How long would you stay in the water without like what are like the, let's say, average, like what is the
I honestly you can't really answer that, so that's why it's really good to do a breath hold course and understand the physiology, so you know what your limit is. So you might have a static breath hold, which a static breath hold is just when you're not moving. That might be in the water or just lying on your bed or something, and you could potentially get up to something like 3 minutes, and that's just you not moving a muscle in your body. You've lowered your heart rate and you're just holding your breath for whatever it is, 3 minutes or 1 minute or whatever it is. As soon as you add the ocean into that and moving any sort of muscle or holding a gun or even just thinking rapidly, you're using up your oxygen, so your breath hold time just shortens and shortens and shortens, and so you have to really just you have to practice and you have to know your limits. But I don't know. Some people dive to 5 meters. Some people dive to 50. It depends on what you're doing and why. If you're diving on a line competitively, you could go down very, very deep. If you just want to catch a fish for dinner, you might only need to go to 5. I mean, I've sped a kingfish snorkeling. Like, you don't even need to dive to get all your kaimoana. You can, it's completely subjective.
How deep have you been to? How? Oh, damn good. She hates these questions. Damn. I hope he doesn't ask. Boom. There you go, Leo.
I had faith that you wouldn't ask that question. I thought, no, he will be thinking about this. He won't ask that question.
Next question.
No. The deepest I've dived is, I think it was like 31 meters or something when we had to do our freediving instructor's course. But honestly, when I'm in the ocean, it's 5 to 15 meters is my happy zone. That's where all the stuff is that you can see anyway.
And then could you already like feel the difference with the pressure? Is it like, is the body already responding to? Yes.
It's pretty cool once you get past the point of kind of when you like neutral buoyancy and your negative buoyancy. You learn when you're freediving, because you want to use the least amount of sort of muscle movement and everything possible, because you're trying to conserve your oxygen and your heart rate needs to stay low. And it's really cool because when you go past that point, you actually just start sinking. So you don't need to do anything. Your body just gets dragged down. Oh, listen to the rain. Cue rain.
Yeah.
So you start to, you just get
scary?
swallowed.
Like,
it actually can be kind of scary sometimes, but when you relax into it, it's really fun. So you're basically free falling, and then when you turn around and you come up and you have to sort of kick against that.
Does it
and
go
then
fast? Like when you free fall, is it quick?
Well, this is where the safety comes into and weighting. So a lot of people strap too much weight on, and then that can be dangerous because you sink more quickly. So you have to make sure you're weighted properly so that you're not getting dragged down. But the cool thing is that the opposite then happens when you come up. So you turn around and you can come back up. So you're kicking against that sort of pull, and then you hit the buoyancy again, and you don't have to kick anymore, and you just pop. You fly.
Wow.
It's like flying, as long as you're weighted properly. It's so fun. It's the coolest feeling. Yeah.
Would you give it a go, Tanya?
Oh, shit.
We've got a camp coming up in November, and we can get you to 20 metres.
In my mind, it sounds fantastic, but in the reality, I don't know.
We'll start you at the Lost Springs.
But I'm going to come to the Lost Springs, In fact, it was funny because even though this has got nothing to do with free diving, when you talk about it and being relaxed, I think of being in a flotation tank, and when you're in that zen point and you're just... But it's above the ocean, you know what I mean?
We can start at the top and then...
But I get what that feeling must... you know.
Yeah, and it's cool because if you do a proper course, you learn how to utilize your body and your muscles more efficiently. So if you don't, you kind of sit at the top, you hold your breath, and you dive in and you flap down, and you're wasting energy and oxygen, and so you just don't have as an enjoyable time, I don't think, or that you even realize that you could. So if you learn how to be efficient with your movements, it makes a huge difference to your the amount of time that you can spend in the water and how relaxed you actually are. So I always do push that for safety reasons, but also so that you can enjoy your freediving more and your spearfishing.
Is there any like medical conditions that you'd say no? I don't think
we have. You know. We have a freediving medical disclaimer. I can't remember all of them, but it's things like heart and stroke and stuff. But you just need to get that checked off by your GP. Most things you can, as long as the doctor says it clears you for it. But we have like a very strict medical clearance form that you have to fill before you do anything freediving related with us. Because there's a lot of
in general, you know, like if someone had epilepsy or anything like that, you know,
everything would have to just be cleared with the medical teams. And if they say no, then we don't do it. I think the cool thing as well is it's not just like you said. You're talking a lot about the hunting and the kaimoana, and I think it's hugely popular. And I think it's really great that people can do that, because especially in a time when food is so expensive, and it's almost like food. It's food sovereignty. It's kai sovereignty. It's allowing people to go back to the way that it was and be able to provide for themselves and their families through spearfishing and freediving, gathering a feed for your family and for yourself. But it's when that's taken a little bit too far that it kind of ruins it for everyone, or killing stuff unnecessarily is
how was that for you? How was that understanding of, oh, now I can actually go catch my food? The appreciation changes. We were talking about it before the show. I don't eat animals anymore, but one of the reasons why I stopped was the understanding of how ridiculous and absurd is the industry. How like farming and what we do with the, how do you call the trawling?
Oh, the trawling! I know.
The trawling, you know, like that. There's some papers now going to stop the bottom trawling and the Hauraki Gulf and all this stuff. So when I started to make sense of all those things, I was like, oh, what are we doing? But then living in the Coromandel and knowing so many people doing this spearfishing, you know, I have a different respect now. I understand that that's actually much better if you have someone who is going, catching, eating what they catch. Or if it's more than what they need, they share. You know, that's why for me the competitive element of it doesn't rock my boat. I don't have a problem to talk with people who are into the competitions and all the stuff. I feel like, you know, humans, we are in a process. We're still evolving in many ways, and some people feel like doing that is a sport. I don't see it like that, but if you're going and you're catching and you're eating and you're sharing, I feel like it becomes even more powerful. The food might be even do better to you,
it tastes way better. But that's what I mean. That whole process of spearfishing, well, collecting a kaimoana, and it's the same goes for land hunting, is it's subsistence. It's subsistence hunting. So the competitive, and again, like I'm not going to get myself into trouble here. The competition stuff is just not my thing, and I'm not going to bag it. And I think that there is actually room for it, because I think there is. The competitions are getting much more ethical, I guess you can say, and there's still a lot of community in it. But for me personally, I don't do it. I just don't see it's not my thing. The only reason I even learned how to spearfish, and when I say learned, I'm a freediving instructor, I'm not a spearfishing instructor. I am proudly average, is what I tell people at spearfishing, and it's okay to be average. You don't have to be an expert at something to be passionate about it. But I started to freedive first, and when I was getting into it, I would go out with mates who were guys that were spearos, because that was kind of the only way I could pick up on it and get more experience in the ocean. And I remember looking at them and being like, fuck, I'd never do that. That's like totally barbaric, like holy shit. And then the more that I would see and learn, I was like, oh, actually that's not so bad. And when I did more freediving and spent more time in the ocean, the more I was like, I can't eat the seafood from the supermarket. Because I'm getting so much out of the ocean mentally and spiritually and physically from all of this. I can't. It just doesn't sit well with me. I think I always knew theoretically it was not good, the commercial fishing industry to some degree. But it wasn't until I actually got in the ocean freediving and was like locking eyes with animals and the environment that I was like, I can't do that. So I stopped eating seafood unless I caught it myself, and fishing. I'm not that good at fishing, and I also have a fish. I've got a real problem with it, but again, it's still quite. There's a lot of that can contribute to sort of plastic pollution and all that kind of stuff, the fishing waste and all that kind of stuff. So it didn't really sit well with me either. So then I thought, oh well, spearfishing is actually the most selective and sustainable way of collecting fish. So then when I learned it, I was like, well, this is cool.
Is that part of what you do, like with the groups, with the people that come to you? Like, do you talk about that element as well?
Yeah.
Of like the respect towards the moana and what you're taking and what you're giving?
As much as I can. And again, I'm no expert in the area. It's just what I have learnt and believe. And because what we're teaching is freediving, but we do a lot of talking around the spearfishing side of it. So we haven't actually specifically with salts taught spearfishing. I don't think it's something you can 100% teach. I don't know. But it's oh my god, my mind because it connects with your culture as well, right? I'm sorry, I don't know where you were going, but what I was thinking was because we started with that, right? Talking about discovering about the Maori culture and
who you are. And then there's always this beautiful element of the moana, of like how Aotearoa, New Zealand,
It's just
doesn't
respect,
matter where
isn't
you
it?
go, it's so
everything.
close to
It's-
the
yeah.
water, and Kiwis are so passionate about the water. So I feel like it's not that some people are disconnected, but they just haven't tapped into that yet. I think
Yeah.
it belongs to, it's part of all Kiwis,
Yeah.
probably all of us as humans, but in
Yeah.
a country that is so close to the water,
Yeah.
you just got to take that moment, and which connects to the breathing,
Yeah.
which is giving yourself the time
Yeah.
and tapping into that mindset of
Yeah.
like, we are the same thing
Yeah.
here, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
and
us.
I think, it's definitely about a respect thing, and I think in order to be able to respect something at that level, that you're going to make conscious decisions to sort of support it, you really have to have some sort of connection to it.
Yeah.
And so many people lose that connection because they don't live next to it, because of the way that society is now. And I think we were saying before, like even just being able to freedive and spearfish, that's a real privilege. Not everyone gets that opportunity, and I think something that's really important for our kaupapa is providing like equitable access to the ocean for wahine. I really want to focus on Māori as well here, but it is really for everyone. But being able to provide an equitable access to the ocean for Māori would be awesome. And reclaiming, inspiring people to reclaim we spoke about this earlier as well, but with their identity, with their Māoritanga, be confident in that, learn the skills that our ancestors had to feed your family, learn the mātauranga, learn the knowledge.
Do you think, like, I might be going off on a little bit of a tangent, but do you think that the way life is now, that there's a lot of that coming back now, like even living on the land with the vegetables and everything else, that people are starting to look now like, well, can I swap this for this with the neighbour, or can I, it's going back to the old ways?
Yeah,
which
definitely.
I think's quite heartwarming.
Yeah.
Really, and I think, I want
It
to be
is.
part of that. I don't want to be just this consumer buying up the road, and and I think you do have more respect when you start doing things like that. For everything, and all living things, really.
You definitely see it. It's definitely moving that way, and that's a lot of people's sort of wish or desire. But like we were saying before, it's a privilege to be able to do that. So a lot of the people that need it the most can't.
Yeah.
So how do we make that accessible to them? How do we give them the skills to be able to collect the kaimoana? How do we give them the ability to grow their own marae garden, vegetable garden? How do we give them the skills to be able to reclaim that knowledge so that they can learn the way that their ancestors did? So yes, but
it's got to come.
It's always the people that
back,
that need it the most that don't get the access to it. So how can we change that? And it can be changed in lots of ways. But for me, I think as well, not just learning to freedive, because if you can't get geographically or financially to a freediving course, even just learning about the breath, consuming the content online about that kind of stuff, looking at a video of the ocean, just really trying to connect that way, it can do wonders. But we really need to up our game in terms of making things like this accessible for the people that need it the most.
Well, you're doing the right thing.
Doing a great job.
Trying.
Great job. How is for someone who is focusing, and I like how you said, I like what you said about it is for everyone, but there's a focus on Maori people. And we had a guest on the show saying, what's good for Maori is good for everyone.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's what my dad says.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand sometimes. The group who tried to change things, kind of like didn't do a great job of excluding. And now there's this fear. That's my perspective as a foreigner, someone living here for 10 years, but also someone who comes from a colonized country, that there's this fear that by bringing a culture, by making stronger, it will limits the rights of the other ones who are not part of that culture. And that's where the misconception is. It's not making these people more important or whatever. It's just like finding a good balance, and we can live in harmony here. But like the values, the Maori values seem to be good
Do you
for
think that's
everyone.
old school thinking though? Or
Yeah. But
It's still solidly embedded in every
Yeah.
system throughout the country.
But one thing that I try to become when those conversations arise, because there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of emotions, and again, fear. It's just fear based, because you're not breathing properly, and then the anxiety kicks in. That's like something that especially young people will say, oh, but they will die soon. You know, like old people will die. And I'm like, that's not the way to go.
And then I'm in here being like, we got to save them too.
Yeah, exactly. No, because that's
Old
the thing.
people.
I feel like one of the most beautiful things, it's when you change your mind and you actually acknowledge that it's fine, that you're actually growing by changing your mind. You know, like, so every time that I come across someone that says that, that old dog, you know, like won't learn new tricks, like it won't change their minds. I'm like, well, you reacting like that, it's surely not helping them. And I say that because I saw my parents changing a lot of their ways, because I left my home country and I started to experience a very different beneficial lifestyle here. And just by chatting with them, I was not pushing anything. I was just telling them, I'm like, I live close to the water, there's space, there's no traffic lights, and I eat more greens. Like, my mom couldn't believe that I was going plant-based because I wouldn't eat anything green. But I was not trying to push anything. I was just saying, I say, Mom, watch this. Look what they do to the environment, so this comes to your table so handy and beautiful, you know, like foods are not meant to look like this and all that stuff. And then suddenly they're questioning themselves, they're questioning their friends, but in a polite way, not in a confrontational way. And then I'm like, oh, cool. If my parents can change, you know, like they never had a big education.
It's the mindset.
It's the mindset. So I feel like the work, it has much more heart than words and aggression. And like, come on.
And I think as well, and you spoke to it just before, what I found the most successful technique, I don't know if that's what you call it, but when you're trying to maybe broaden someone's mind if their perspective is narrow, God, I'm trying to be really PC.
Be PC.
Is actually just leading by example rather than I think it's very valid to have to call people out though when it's needed. It can be dangerous to do so sometimes though, and so you kind of got to pick your battles at times. But if you lead by example and model how to pronounce something, or I don't know, how to do whatever it is, then people come to their own conclusions and slowly change in that way without the pressure of feeling like you said, like they get defensive or anything like that. But oh man, this is a huge topic.
It's a great topic. Do you feel like Aotearoa is doing a great job when it comes to that, with acknowledging?
You're trying to get me in trouble?
No. It's your opinion. Because we were talking about that before. Like my perception is that Aotearoa has a lot of problems, but compared to other countries, is doing great. And so people will say you shouldn't compare. I'm like, I think you should compare. You should have a look at your neighbor. You should have a look at other countries and see what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. Can we follow this example? Oh, that one is leading to something that is not that great. And the reason why I ask in that way is because it feels to me, by watching and by chatting with people from different ages, that the younger people have a cool attitude about Maori culture in Aotearoa. It's kind of like, this is cool, man. And you just said it was not that cool a few years ago. And now you're much more like, nah, this is who I am. This is part of what I do. Yeah.
And I think it's definitely a safer time to be able to explore your Māoritanga or your indigeneity, which is, I mean, for me, why it was, I guess, the timing happened and it all kind of has unfolded in the way that it has. And it's only been in the last kind of 4 years that I've been on this journey. Well, no, you could say that it was from my birth, but yeah, this is a big topic there. Holy shit.
Big topic.
You're going to get me in trouble.
Nah. Say the things that you feel comfortable saying, obviously, of course. Then we can change
I think that Aotearoa, yes, like you've said, in comparison to a lot of other countries, we appear like we are we're leading leading in that space, I think we're doing a lot of amazing things, and I think it's a really exciting time. There's a lot of change happening, and a lot of things are snowballing in the right way. There's still a shit ton of work to do.
There's still racism, there's still ignorance, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I think there'll always be a lot of work to do.
There's always a lot of work to do, but it's exciting in that there's a lot of positive stuff happening now. I do think there's a lot of stuff that's hidden well as well, so there's a perception that maybe it's better than it is, but it's great nonetheless. As much as possible. God, we're doing okay.
Doing good. There's work to do.
There's a lot of work to do.
But yes, it's happening. Now, business-wise, you were telling us that you were working in the health system, and then suddenly here you are running your own business and leading something that is yours. You know, it takes your name, it takes your face. How is that side of things?
You saying that that's my face?
No, I mean, you know.
That's a compliment.
It's a
Thank you. No,
face.
it's not.
I didn't say that, but but it could be. But like you're putting yourself out there, you know, like you are the business. How is that feeling? I think all of us can relate to it now of putting ourselves out there as business owners, I guess we can say.
It's really great, and there's a lot of positive, but it's terrifying. It's a very vulnerable place to be, especially when it's something that you're so passionate about, and there's lots of topics that are polarizing topics, and if you have a stance on something, you can kind of get yourself into some tricky situations. But as long as, my dad's always said, as long as you're values based, that's what you just need to use to guide you in your business. The financial side will come with time and all of that kind of stuff. Still haven't seen much of that, but as long as you stick to your values, then you'll be okay. And so that's what I always kind of try and fall back on whenever I have to go to do something or make a decision or choose to partner with someone or whatever it is. It's like, what are my values? But it's really exciting, and it's just hugely rewarding when you're doing something that is, it sounds cheesy, helping other people, or when you see someone else's growth and development. So for me, it was cool because things like freediving and stuff, it was transformational for me, and it's just so cool to be able to see that happening for other people. Yeah.
Did you have any mentors, Tanya, or you were just watching examples and people around you doing the work that you wanted to do? How was it
with my plant-based?
With the business,
That actually sprang out of COVID with Chef Cynthia Louise. And I actually was working, what am I saying? That's wrong. I was looking at some Dr. Libby stuff because I'd done a little bit of stuff with her and, you know, online. And I saw her chef on there and I opened up a cookbook because I have 400 of them at home. And I thought, wouldn't it have been cool to speak to this lady, not ever thinking in a million years. So during the first lockdown, I found she lived in Bali, so I wrote her an email and said, I'm just this barefoot soldier in Coromandel. I've got no money, no advertising, I don't know anything, but I like your food, and I know you can't employ me, but, you know. And lo and behold, she got hold of me about 8 weeks later, I just about shit myself.
Wow, cool.
And it just went from there. And so she's still, that's when I go back to Bali in August, we're going to sit down and have a little discussion about things. And she mentors me for free. And she's been amazing because I wouldn't be where I am now because I don't have a clue about business. I still don't really. But I never had the confidence. And without her, you know, I mean, a lot of hard work too, but I wouldn't be, so I'm very lucky. And I will keep going, you know.
It is cool. It is cool the people you get to meet if you're in an industry that you're passionate about.
World, you know. And like you, still haven't seen the money yet, but you know what?
We'll
hands down, I'm the happiest I've ever been,
and
the
so cool.
healthiest I've ever felt. You know, I can only speak for me, and it's like I feel like I'm getting younger on the inside all the time. You know, outwardly, yes, I'm getting older, but. Yeah,
wait till you learn to freedive. Holy!
Oh my God! But I do, and I think you reach a point in your life where you know if you believe in yourself and you just put yourself out there, and it's scary.
It's
terrifying, my God, it is. You know, even bringing food here every week. No, but you don't know what people are going to say. You don't know. You know, I mean, we screw up too. You know, so.
But it's just learning when you screw up.
Yeah,
it's just learning.
And I think if you're just honest and you've got your values and you know you acknowledge whatever, hey.
And it's nice to be able to come on, I guess, like podcasts and things like this, because when you've got something that's primarily kind of like for me, it's an Instagram page, really. That's how I kind of get the most of the information and everything out there. And people make up their own minds about who you are and what you're about. And it's actually really hard to describe the depth of something on an Instagram page. And for me, like Salt Aotearoa is like, it's almost a manifestation of my personal journey, basically reconnecting with my Māoritanga as like this business that's grown with me, even with its name changes over the years and with the people I've met and previous business partners and things like that, and the way that I've grown. The business has grown parallel, and it's actually just like me. And so then that's why it's so vulnerable, because then when you get criticisms, you're like, my heart.
It hurts.
I mean, I have
or
a
you go,
lot of,
fuck you.
Yeah, I have
You've
a lot
got no
of
idea.
People say to me, I'm vegan. No, I'm not vegan.
Yeah.
I'm not gluten-free. I don't have anything like that. Mine's just about plants. Yes, we can have a variation, but, you know, it's just about plants, really. But what other people think you are, you know. But
I get people thinking I'm really good at spearfishing. That's why I like to start with I'm not. I like to just spear a couple of fish for dinner, and like lately I haven't been able to get anything. Sometimes it's just a seaweed salad. But they make that perception because you put one photo on of a bloody fish and they're like, oh, she can spear everything. It's like, no, I can't. But I do what I like to the level that I like it. And it's just about enjoyment for me.
I think too, what's like listening to all your stories and where you've come from and what you're doing, which is really exciting. I think too, one of the things Chef said to me, and you would probably know Leo and Taylor, it's the stories that sell the product rather than the product itself sometimes, you know, and it's who you become and where you go from there with it, really.
Do you find that as something that helps, that goes for both of you, like putting yourself or like telling your story? Because sometimes I think about it, you know, like it's my face, I'm hosting the show and I have a story, obviously, you know, there's a journey here, but I want the show to be for the community, for everyone. But then it's that questioning of like how much of myself it will be interesting for. In my opinion, I feel like it's great that I tell people who I am and what I'm doing, because it's relatable to humans. Otherwise, it's these clouds of what? All community, but who's behind it? So do you feel like that as well? Of like, I have to explain to people who Renee is and what's her journey. And do you find value in that? Or it's more like it's my product, this is what I'm doing?
Sometimes I don't even know what a product is. Other times it's just like, this is a great movement for women to get into the ocean. And I think that the storytelling is the most powerful thing. And it's because the core of what my kaupapa is to inspire women to just go on their own journey. And so the byproduct of that is that I've learned how to spearfish and learned how to teach freediving, and now I can teach that as well to support them even further. So it's totally about, and not just my storytelling, other storytelling of the journeys of everyone else that's been touched by this kaupapa. And I was going to say Salt Aotearoa, it sounded really bad. And it's just getting them involved, but definitely having that person to relate to, I think is quite powerful. People, like you said, you can relate to it better. That
connection and somehow, you know, it draws you in, and then you want to know more.
And then people go, oh, I didn't know that was that, and you're like, oh, good, I'm glad I talked about it then, because that's an important part of why I'm doing this. Or, you know, like we're trying really hard to secure heaps of funding so that we can run free courses for people, but that's just all done in the background. Like people, you know, nobody really knows the depth of what people do behind the scene. They just see a couple of nice photos on Instagram, but the depth of it goes way further than that. And sharing stories is the best way to get that across. And that's what our ancestors did.
And I think, like I was mentioning to you earlier on, I used to teach in kindy for 17 years. And, I mean, I can't speak the reo. My pronunciation's not great. But the way that I used to love teaching to the children that meant something rather than just tokenism was through food, through stories, through gardening, so for me that felt a lot more than trying to read something that I couldn't pronounce, but bring it alive through other means, you know, and those whole stories. And and it's really interesting. I love stories.
Are you good with your social media? Like, do you have the time?
You tell me. How good's my Instagram page?
Looks pretty good. But like, do you do it yourself?
Yeah.
Do you like spending the time and planning and thinking how you're gonna put the things out
So
there? Or doesn't-
time consuming.
It is.
Social media is like a blessing and a curse at the same time. I do it all, yep. And it's, there's a lot of just thinking, even if, thinking and planning, and it probably doesn't even look so much like it is. I think sometimes you look at people's Instagram pages and they look effortless, and then when you have to go and do one yourself, you're like, oh my God, that must have taken so long. Yeah.
I'm hopeless. I'll be the first to admit.
It's so time consuming, but it's the main way that, for my business at least, for my Salt Aotearoa business, that we get the information and the vibe and the community going, other than, like, especially in the winter. In the summer we've got events and things running, which gets people together, which is great. But it's the way that we keep people connected. But looking forward to the summer. Last summer was a dud. The summer's going to be really exciting. We've got some really cool stuff coming up. We have an annual freediving camp, and that camp's really fun. That's just when we get a bunch of wahine together. We take them through a level 1 course, so you can get to like 20 metres. We teach you everything about those basics of freediving. You get to...
Do you do that here in Whirianga?
We do it up in Kaiwi. That's Kaiwi Lakes.
Kaiwi. Yep.
Beautiful Kaiwi Lakes.
I know.
It's beautiful. And it's just the best place for people to connect, learn about, we facilitate kōrero and like spearfishing and all sorts of stuff. We get real cool people to come in and facilitate stuff. So it's a really cool thing. But then hopefully, if the weather plays ball, we've got some really cool just trips, just boat trips and oceanic trips. Me and Jules have got some really exciting stuff in the pipelines, working together, providing
we all
some
need
oceanic
the good weather.
But we need it, I know, and everyone needs it, hey, so
and roads.
And roads.
Pick the weather before the roads right now. But
How does the work that you do connect with mental health? Such a hot topic, people nowadays put themselves out there, and I appreciate that. People telling their experiences and how the work that you do support mental health.
I think it's huge. Again, when we're talking about freediving, the basics of it is mindfulness, relaxation, your breath, breathing, being calm, and that speaks massively to mental health. So when I'm talking about hauora, we're talking about the freediving, the breath work for hauora. Mental health is one aspect of that. You've got your spiritual, you've got your physical, and you've got your whānau, or your social. So I've just kind of outlined Te Whare Tapawhā. I don't know if you're familiar with that Māori health model by Mason Drury. So mental health, or hine ngaro, is just one element to that. And so it's about keeping your whole hauora balanced. So when one's off skew, then things become, difficult, or your mental health might become compromised, and there's so many factors that can come into that with daily living, with everything we've just discussed, the weather, the roads, the recession, just everything that's happening at the moment. And I genuinely think that the breathing and the freediving can play a really significant role in improving that for people, and the ocean. So just being submerged in the environment. So we talk about the taiao, the environment, the natural world. It could be the ocean, it could be the forest. The hunting aspect too, it's almost a little bit primal. It gives you that satisfaction that you can survive, that you can feed your family. So that the whole freediving, spearfishing, kaimoana, all of that, it speaks hugely. I'm a speech therapist. I don't even know what I'm saying. Massively to mental health, but all health. So hauora, just everything.
Did you feel the shift yourself? Like, was it something that you were understanding, or now looking back, you can tell more, or even
I can tell, probably in retrospect, looking back, I'm like, whoa, the gravity of this is massive. Like, I'm in my head at the moment thinking about how to create a research project around hauora and freediving. But when I first started, it wasn't like I was consciously going, oh, my mental health is suffering, I need to find a solution. It was just like, I'm burnt out at work and I need something. And so going to the ocean had an instant relief, that element of like that instant kind of like, oh my God, this is really amazing for my just everything, for my spirit. But then as soon as I got out of the ocean, it was back to what it was. So for me, it was like, okay, I know that this can help. So how can I make this more a part of my life so that it's sustainable? And how can I, if I'm getting so much out of this, how can I give back? And that also helps your mental health. Well, for me, my spirituality and my mental health, knowing.
So your priorities change?
So much, yeah, so much. Yeah, and that's why I wanted to share it with so many people, because I was like, this is cool. This could help heaps of people. Yeah, so instantly I'm like, how do I make this a thing for everyone?
I feel like a lot of people fear maybe attacks, like animals. We were talking about the shark attack. They're like,
oh my gosh.
If we look at the stats, humans are killing way more sharks than sharks killing humans. But every time that one shark gets a human, it goes crazy. That was,
if we're talking about that,
where
one
was that?
video,
Was it Egypt?
I can't remember.
Was
I
that
think it was somewhere like Egypt. Hey, yeah, that was really unfortunate. And look, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to make any sort of claims on knowing anything really like scientific about this, but like that was shit. That was terrible. Even I was like, oh my God, I'm never getting in the ocean again. But that was very quickly, like I moved on from that thought. Terrible thing that happened, and you wouldn't wish that on anyone. But the reality is it's a very, very rare occurrence. And the reality is that sharks are actually quite amazing creatures. And I think that's something that comes with, if you start to enter the ocean, you do have to have an element of respect for everything that lives in there. When I first started seeing sharks, I used to shit myself. It was scary. I was like, oh my God, I have no protection. What's going to happen? The shark's going to just savagely come out and attack me, because of everything that I'd consumed online and on TVs and all that kind of stuff.
They're probably more scared of us, really, in reality.
But the reality is they're pretty sweet, but they're to be respected. So they're also not like puppy dogs that people, you go the other way and people like hang on to their fins or think that they can touch them, and it's like, no. You still got to respect them. They still could hurt you. You just need to be realistic, right? And respectful of like their presence and their mana and their place in the ocean as an apex predator.
Oh, that's where they live too, don't they?
Yeah. To be honest, I'm more scared of moray eels.
Oh.
Have you seen those bloody things?
Those are hideous.
Oh my God. Danger noodles.
Yeah.
And then we have the submarines that get lost.
I know.
Hot topics. Wow.
I know.
Scary,
Again, I'm not an expert at all in any of that, but honestly, you couldn't just describe a worse nightmare for me even before it went missing. I am so claustrophobic. You could not pay me to get into a steel tube like that and go down.
Especially
that
for the
far.
amount of adults in that space.
Yeah. It's so sad. I hope I hope they find it.
They went quite deep there, Tanya. You were telling us how deep.
I can't remember the depth, but they said it was like coming from the top of Mount Iraqi down to the bottom.
Was it like 4 kilometres or something?
Yeah, some whatever the height of that is, I can't remember, but it was huge, and they don't even know if it's even further than that. And they said it wasn't that easy to, because I guess whatever's under there, But yeah, it's awful.
It blows my mind, because we were talking about this earlier, but the health and safety in New Zealand is so intense and so gnarly. It's actually really hard to run freediving and spearfishing things in New Zealand because of all the red tape. So then when I see something like that, I'm like, how does something like that happen? And I can't teach freediving in some cases. Like, it's crazy. But the health and safety, like, I don't know. Surely they should have attached that thing on a rope or something, but I'm not sure.
Is it a misconception that it's an expensive sport, or something that it would cost, or there are costs involved when freediving?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's definitely a privilege to be able to access the ocean in that way. There's costs that are involved. You can do it in a cheaper way, but there's costs involved in driving to the ocean, getting accommodation in the first place. It's like things like that, as well as...
And do it safely.
So do it safely, like going on a course, they're expensive, and the gear can be expensive, but it's an investment in my mind. So if you invest in it, you reap the rewards. Like, I've had gear since I first started that I still use, and so technically it's quite cheap if you just buy once and buy well. Well, not once. You're going to have to buy a little bit more than that. But
Comes
it's a
down
choice.
to choice of
Yeah.
what you put your value on.
Yeah,
You know?
and there are some really affordable packages and things these days. So it is definitely, there's a cost, and it's not within everybody's like sort of financial ability, but it's an investment. So if you can, I'd invest in good gear. Yeah.
Invest smart.
Invest in Salt Aotearoa. No.
Yeah, so such a cool chat. I love these conversations that I'm not very familiar with the topic, so I learn, I absorb a lot. So thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Can you give us a little bit more information about Salt Aotearoa, how to get in touch, what's coming up? You already told us a little bit about the camps and everything, but like, spread the word, girl, do it.
Mainly on Instagram, so the @thing Salt Aotearoa, and we've got a website. Website has all of our events and sort of wānanga that we'll be holding. Obviously, winter's a bit of a quiet period, but we do have our breathwork thing at the Lost Springs, which is really cool that you guys should both come to. Into the spring and summer, like I said, we're going to be doing more oceanic sort of adventures, day trips, liverboards, and hopefully starting a bit of a club, a freediving club in Auckland and the Coromandel. So you can learn and keep up to date on the website and Instagram page. And
one thing I wanted to ask you, it might be a silly question.
No question is a silly question, except how deep could you dive? No.
No. What's the age restriction? Like if you've got a child, say, I don't mean a really young child, but do you have an age restriction?
Yeah. I mean, for the breathwork one in Whitia, in the Lost Springs.
Just in general, like for freediving, if you had a teenage...
I'm going to have to go back, but I'm pretty sure it's 16.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are things that we can definitely do with younger, but in terms of the camp and things like that, there's an younger age limit, but the cap is anything as long as you pass the medical. So
there you go, Tanya.
I guess I'm older than 16.
We're gonna have to give it a go.
As long as you're older than 16.
I will come to the Lost Springs.
But we can cater to families with younger children on day trips and things. That's perfectly fine.
Nice. Yeah, how cool. Thank you so much, Renee. That's special. That's cool.
It's been a lovely, I was going to say afternoon, evening.
Evening
chat. Yeah. What else would you want to do when it's pouring with rain outside?
Learn,
be here.
Learn about breath work. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing and
welcome.
for being part of the whānau now.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank me. Thank you, Leo. Thank Taylor. Thank Renee.
Thank you for the food. Thank you for the pie. That was beautiful.
That's right, you can have carrot cake now.
Should we have some desserts now? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, let's have some of that cake. Thanks, Taylor. And for you guys watching us at home, Leo is off to Brazil. After 8 years, we got some cool shows recorded. So next week, we got some special stuff coming up. We recorded some beautiful shows, very, very special guests. Show number 200, it's coming in 2 weeks. We got a massive celebration coming up, so you know the drill. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. on YouTube and all the audio leading platforms. ALTBAYS, Kakite, peace, ciao.